It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We had some fairly surprising news this morning as U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley came out with LAPD and the ATF to announce that an arrest has been made when it comes to the cause of the Palisades Fire, the fire that killed 12 people and destroyed thousands and thousands of homes. And the story is really strange. Let's go right to the source. Here was Bill Asaley this morning.
Today, we are announcing the arrest of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht for igniting a fire that ultimately burned down the Palisades earlier this year, killing 12 people, destroying more than 6,800 structures, both homes and businesses, and damaging over 1,000 more buildings. The complaint unsealed today charges the defendant with destruction of property by means of fire, a felony.
So arson?
A felony that carries a mandatory minimum 5-year federal prison sentence and is punishable by up to 20 years in federal prison.
Doesn't feel like enough.
The defendant was arrested yesterday on a federal criminal complaint near his Florida residence, and he's expected to make his initial...
Yeah, this guy was a resident of the Palisades, allegedly an Uber driver who... The story's really odd. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't believe it. It's just, this was a guy who apparently was obsessed with fire to the point where he was, how do I put this? Looking up images of forest fires and people running for them on ChatGPT. It's a strange, strange thing. Apparently, he set a fire not on January 7th, but on January 1st, on New Year's Eve. And this small fire is what led to the Palisades Fire. Let's continue.
And he's expected to make his initial appearance today in the federal court in Orlando, Florida. I stress that the complaint contains allegations and every defendant is presumed innocent.
Yeah, we know that.
The allegations in the affidavit are supported by digital evidence, including the defendant's ChatGPT prompt of a dystopian painting showing in part a burning forest and a crowd fleeing from it.
Did you know that the government can find out what you've been searching for on ChatGPT? Be careful out there.
And we're going to put that up on the screen here once we get that going.
Whatever kind of artificial intelligence pornography that you've been looking up, someone's tracking you.
The allegations are, there it is. That's from his ChatGPT. That's an image he produced a few months before the fire started. It shows the city being burned there. The allegations are further supported by the defendant's cell phone, his false statements to law enforcement, and his behavior during the Lockman fire, which the defendant is charged with maliciously starting shortly after midnight on New Year's Day of this year, and which eventually became the Palisades Fire.
Yeah, see, apparently there was this smaller fire that this guy allegedly started with arson. They don't say how. I'm sure they'll save that for court. And then the firefighters went to put out this fire, but it was smoldering underground in the roots, which I learned today is a thing. And when the winds kicked up on the 7th, that fire ignited into one of the most devastating we've ever seen.
Late last New Year's Eve, Rinderknecht returned to Pacific Palisades after working the evening shift as an Uber driver. 2 of his passengers told law enforcement that he appeared agitated and angry that night. After dropping off a passenger in Pacific Palisades, Rinderknecht parked his car and tried and failed to contact a former friend. He exited the car, walked up a nearby trail, took iPhone videos at a nearby hilltop, and listened to a rap song whose music video including objects being lit on fire.
Again, the details of this story are very specific and very weird. Another one of the allegations here is that this guy would listen over and over and over again to a French rap song where in the music video, there's like a few things that are lit on fire. It's really strange.
The defendant had listened to this song and watched its music video repeatedly in the days leading up to the Lockman fire.
If I was judged for the videos that I watch on repeat, people would be talking for hours and hours and hours as to why a 40-year-old syndicated radio host watches videos of people doing solo runs on Pokemon over and over and over again. And I would have to get people to believe that it's my sleep video, that I watch it and it makes me sleepy.
12 minutes into the new year, environmental sensing platforms indicated that a fire had started. It took the defendant several tries to contact 911 to report the fire.
So apparently this guy started the fire and then tried to call 911 to report the fire that he started. Okay.
He fled the scene in his car, but turned around after passing fire engines driving in the opposite direction to fight the fire. While the Lockman fire burned, the defendant walked up the same trail from earlier that night to watch the fire and firefighters. Using his iPhone.
And that is something that, is fairly known when it comes to arsonists. They like to watch their destruction. Some of them, they're getting a sexual excitement out of it. We don't know what's going on with this guy.
Using his iPhone to take short videos of the scene. Although firefighters suppressed the blaze.
So he kept all the evidence on his phone? Brilliant.
Although firefighters suppressed the blaze, the fire continued to smolder and burn underground within the root structure of the dense vegetation.
This is something that a lot of people, including myself, learned today. That even when a fire is put out, it can be smoldering underground. The roots can be burning. And that can kick up.
So that fire started on January 1st. And it smoldered underground for about a week until on January 7th, heavy winds caused this underground fire to surface and spread above ground, causing what became known as the Palisades Fire.
So that may be the spark, but it doesn't excuse all the other things that went wrong when it comes to the Palisades Fire, that this monster, if he's convicted, has nothing to do with, which includes the fire hydrants not working, the water reservoir being empty, traffic being such a mess that people abandoned their cars on Sunset Boulevard, and so many other failures that you have to look to the city and county of Los Angeles for. But knowing how this started at least answers something.
One of the most destructive wildfires in Los Angeles city history. Law enforcement got to work and by January 24th, had identified and interviewed the defendant.
Wow. They talked to this guy 9 months ago.
During his interview, he lied about where he was when he first saw the Lockman fire, claiming he was near the bottom of a hiking trail. Geolocation data for the 911 calls showed that he was standing above the fire in a clearing merely 30 feet from the blaze as it rapidly grew.
This guy's iPhone turned him in on every single aspect of this.
As the world watched in horror as the Palisades fire burned, victims perished in the smoke and flames. Homes where cherished family memories and belongings were turned to rubble and ash. The iconic Pacific Coast Highway along Malibu looked like a war zone. Thousands of people were forced to evacuate. Though homes and businesses cannot be rebuilt, this arrest, we hope, will provide a measure of justice to all those who were impacted. We're going to do questions at the end, and we're going to get into more detail. But
okay, so that's what Bill Asaley had to say. He then handed it off to Kenny Cooper from the ATF. Let's see what he has to say about this very bizarre case where they have arrested the guy who allegedly started the fire on January 1st, that was put out was still smoldering and led to the fire on January 7th.
I'm going to turn it over now to Kenny Cooper, who's a special agent in charge of the ATF Los Angeles Field Office.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Cooper. I'm the special agent in charge of ATF's Los Angeles Field Division. Today marks a significant moment in a long road to justice for our community. After more than 8 months of tireless, meticulous work, I stand here with our partners, proud to announce an arrest in connection to the devastating Palisades fires.
And they've been working on this thing. I mean, there was supposed to be that after-action report that Karen Bass was supposed to release about all the failures of the fire and why she decided she had to fire the fire chief, even though she's the one that went to Ghana. And they said, the Fed said, don't release that yet because we're still working on figuring out how to arrest somebody.
That claimed lives, destroyed homes, and shook this community to its core. Jonathan Rindernesh, age 29, residing in Melbourne, Florida, was taken into federal custody by ATF special agents.
By the way, it was kind of interesting when the first tweets and the first headlines came out about this story. It started with Florida man charged with starting the Palisades fire.
A Los Angeles City Fire Department investigator and a Los Angeles police detective. This partnership and arrest is significant in the three agencies working hand in glove to get this investigation to where it is. Rinderneck, as the U.S. Attorney mentioned, is charged under Title 18-844F, malicious destruction by means of a fire of real property owned by an organization receiving federal financial assistance.
That's a weird statute, but I guess that's a fancy way to say arson.
I know this community has endured a long wait for answers. Families have carried an unmanageable grief, and an entire community has been left to heal while living with questions. Although we cannot share every detail of this investigation, it is still an active investigation, and judicial proceedings remain ahead. I can tell you this: from day one, ATF and our partners have been relentless. We made a promise to find answers, and we have kept that promise. To give you a sense of the work, I want to highlight the extraordinary level of cooperation between ATF and our partners.
Are we going to give us details about the case, or are we going to thank every other agency for all their leadership through this? Come on. All right, I'm skipping ahead 10 seconds.
LA City Fire.
Skipping ahead 10 seconds.
The NRT, ATF's NRT is an
skipping ahead 10 seconds.
Accelerant detection K-9 team.
Okay, come on.
We arrived within 24 hours and got to work with our partners.
Okay, I think all the accolades are done. Can we get to the details now? I only have an hour.
We processed hundreds of acres of damaged fire, examining every inch for the smallest clue. Over the course of the last 8 months, investigators conducted hundreds of interviews, including witnesses overseas, and pursued more than 200 leads. We collected more than 13,000 items of evidence, including fire debris, digital data, DNA samples, all analyzed by ATF's state-of-the-art forensic lab. Our team carried out 500 scientific tests, supported by ATF's Fire Research Lab.
You remember there was at one point, I think in April, that they were literally trying to spark fires in that area to see if it could get them some answers. Controlled fires.
The nation's only large-scale fire science lab dedicated to fire investigations. More than 10 of our top engineers and support staff contributed to this laboratory analysis.
So can we get some details now?
This investigation has been documented over 300 ATF reports, including a 200-page report detailing the origin and cause of this investigation. ATF technical surveillance specialists were integral in reviewing approximately 1.5 million phone records and data extracted from digital evidence.
We get it. It was a big case. What else do you have to tell us?
And I highlight this because I know there's questions on the length that it took us to come to this conclusion. But we were reviewing a lot of evidence from one of the most catastrophic fires in the U.S. history.
Okay, it was a really big job. This is why it took them 10 months. We'll get to the Q&A where maybe we'll get some more information on this very bizarre case and whatever the connection is to this guy on ChatGPT and the French rap song. But if you want to react to the announcement of an arrest in the Palisades Fire, give us a call, 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Roger in Upland. Roger, hello.
Hi there. I've been listening to this since early this morning and when they first announced it. And the one thing I haven't heard is anything to do with the 11 or 12 people that were killed in this. That's murder, and there's been no talk about murder whatsoever.
Now, I will say I did listen to the Q&A portion of this, and Bill Asaley was asked specifically about that. I believe what he said was that these are the initial charges, and this thing still has to go to a grand jury for them to file the formal charges, where I would imagine that's going to be in the mix, because you're right, 12 people died in this fire.
And that's, I believe it's second-degree murder, but the fact of the matter is that, this guy must be extremely crazy to have done this.
I would imagine so. I mean, most arsonists are not quite right in the head, so we'll find out, and I'm sure we'll find out more about this guy as the days follow. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number if you want to react to this arrest of a suspect in the Palisades Fire. Let's go to Mark in San Diego. Mark, hello.
Hey, Randy. Great show. I think that this guy's going to get off pretty easy. And he's going to take the Beavis and Butthead defense. I don't know which one looks more like him, and you're probably too young. You're just a youngster. I realized that when I was listening to you today. But I just think he's going to get off with a light sentence. Thankfully, it'll be a federal court, so hopefully he spends some time in jail. But I just don't think they're going to be able to get him.
Well, the evidence they're going to have to present is going to be very interesting, and having to also prove that because he started the fire on the 1st, he's responsible for that fire reigniting on the 7th. That's going to be an interesting case. But, this guy might very well plead insanity.
That's the biggest problem they have. That's the Smokey the Bear defense. If you ever even went to a Smokey the Bear class, they said not only you put out the fire, you pour a bunch of extra water on it, and then all the smoldering, and you go touch it. So it's like, if I were I'm not an attorney, I don't ever want to be, but I think someone's going to say, well, then why didn't they go back and dump a bunch of water on the smoldering part of the fire and then check the temperature of it, and he's going to get off. And it's sad, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, and that might lead to the opening of the door of liability on the hands of the city, the county, and or the state, which could be a whole other issue. Thanks so much for the call, Mark. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. If you want to react to this news, the arrest of a suspect in the Palisades Fire, someone that they say started a fire intentionally in the Palisades on January 1st that was put out but was smoldering and eventually reignited when the winds turned up on the 7th. Give us a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We'll take your calls, and we'll get to the Q&A section of this press conference next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to the phones. Your reaction to the arrest of the guy who they say started the Palisades Fire by starting the fire 6 days before. Let's go to Zachary in Brentwood. Zachary, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing great.
Hello? I'm very happy that this guy got arrested, and I hope he spends time in jail for it. But my big fear is the distraction from, if it will distract from the representatives and the officials that held so much responsibility. The mismanagement was ridiculous, and I'm fearful this is going to happen again.
I think that's something that we gotta keep the pressure on. Yes, It's good that this guy was arrested, and it's horrible that he started this fire that led to the fire. But the reason the fire was so catastrophic outside of the winds was the failures at so many different levels of government in the city and the county of Los Angeles, and we can never forget that aspect of this.
Absolutely. I hike these canyons quite regularly, and I was born and raised in the area. I complained to LAFD a few months prior saying there was going to be a fire, that some of the brush buildup was 6-7 feet tall. I told them there's going to be a fire and they need a controlled burn. Their answer to me was, we can't do it. It's a residential area. And as of right now, my prediction is the next one's going to be Bel Air and Beverly Hills. Up the Upper Stone Canyon Reservoir is still empty. Lower Franklin Canyon is still empty. We haven't learned our lessons from it. And the fire started, over by, Palisades Fire, where everyone was coming out, it was built up, and it ended they put it out at Mandeville. Can you imagine if it was flipped around and it started in Mandeville and ended in the Palisades? The people would be much more deaths. This is a much more narrow street, and I don't see anything being done to prevent it or any lessons learned. So it's kind of scary, and I'm hoping this arrest doesn't distract from that, because the mismanagement has been catastrophic.
I think you're so right about that. And I think you're totally right about the fact that I don't think our local leaders have learned almost any lessons about what's going on here, because we haven't really seen a whole lot of fundamental change in how we're preparing for these things outside of the fire department, for some reason, sending out get rid of your brush notices to people that had empty lots because they were burned out in the Palisades. Thanks so much for the call, Zachary. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. More of your calls, and we'll hear the Q&A from this morning's press conference next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking your reaction calls right now at 800-222-KABC, reacting to the breaking news of the day that an arrest was made. There is a suspect in the Palisades Fire. Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney, alleges that this guy on January 1st was in the Palisades after dropping off an Uber passenger. He was an Uber driver, went up a road, intentionally started a fire, called for help. When he saw the fire trucks arriving, he came back to the scene to take videos of the fire. And that fire was put out, but was smoldering underground, and 6 days later led to the Palisades Fire. Let's get your calls, and then we'll go to the Q&A from Bill Asaley. Let's start with Morris in L.A. Morris, hello.
Yeah, the whole thing is a circus act. The individual who started the fire is going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, and he'll do a couple years and be let out. Look at all the street people, the homeless people setting fires all over in L.A. There's the Palmer Basin, they're not prosecuted. Why? Because they have mental issues, and they're irresponsible. They don't understand right from wrong, so they know there's no justice that's taken forth to straighten this mess out. And I think it's going to be nothing from nothing, as usual. He's going to plead out. He's mentally ill, and they'll commit him for 2 or 3 years, and that's the end of it. And it's a rotten system, but it is what it is. I think they wasted more time with the press conference than they're going to do anything about this. So we'll have to wait and see. This is ongoing for many years, all the arson going on in Cityville, all the homes being burnt down, the buildings. What do they do about it? Go downtown L.A. How many fires have been started by the street people or homeless downtown L.A., and they haven't done anything about it? And it just goes on and on and on. And,
well, that's a really good point, Morris, because we know that there's like 16 fires started a day by the homeless in Los Angeles. And with all that fire risk, we should be prepared as possible for it. And I don't think we are. Let's go to Frank in Glendale. Frank, hello.
Hey, Randy, how are you? Listen, if all these agencies did all their research and came to the fact that the fire was put out and then reignited, it sounds to me like, how could they not blame the local fire department or whoever was, putting out that fire? If they put it out, how could it be reignited? I mean, how could they not place the blame there and try to blame it on this guy?
Well, that's what they're doing. It is strange. And this thing, I didn't know that this was even a thing. And we had some firefighters call in earlier today, and they say this is actually something that happens way more often than people think, and was actually how the devastating Oakland fire in '89 started. So if we do know that's a thing, I don't know if we have to change deployment, change policies, but there has to be way more attention paid to something like that if it led to the most destructive fire that we've ever seen. Thanks so much for the call, Frank. Appreciate it. All right, let's get to the Q&A. And since they didn't mic the reporters, I will be translating Gerbil Garble to you, and we'll find out what they had to say.
We will be unsealing the complaint if it hasn't been already. It has much more details than what we've gone over today in there, and that'll be available to you. At this time, we will take a few questions.
Yeah, we still don't know how this guy started the fire.
Questions. Okay, we'll start there.
How did Reddernet start the fire? And in the investigation, as investigators spoke to him, what did he specifically say?
So the reporter asked, how did this guy start the fire, and what did he say to officers?
I'm not going to get into his specific statements. I can tell you ATF has determined that the fire was ignited with an open flame.
Yeah.
But how? Does this guy have a blowtorch? Did he have a Zippo lighter? Can we get some info here?
Yeah.
They plastered the ChatGPT thing all over the place, but is that giving away too much evidence?
Yeah.
Did this gentleman ever live in the Palisades, have any direct connection to the Palisades? Was he familiar with these trails, this area?
So the next question was, and again, I have to translate because they won't mic the reporters, is did this guy who currently was living in Florida have any connection to the Palisades?
Yeah, he was familiar with this particular neighborhood, and he had a friend who lived in this neighborhood. So he knew this neighborhood.
But he never specifically lived there?
He was a resident of Southern California. Do we know what city he lived in? Okay. Yeah, he actually did live in Palisades, and he was...
Love when they have to, hey, can we confirm something? I don't remember.
Yeah, he actually did live in Palisades, and he was familiar with the neighborhood in which this started.
We know that firework.
And then after he talked to the cops, I guess he realized, I better get out of Dodge, and he ended up in Florida.
We know that firework.
The word arson?
Yes, he's arson. Yes.
We know that fireworks.
Okay, let me go here.
Do you know what was the protocol taken around the initial fire on New Year's Day? Was there precaution taken?
Something about was there precaution taken in the fires? Look, even sometimes for me, this is difficult. Why can't they mic the reporters? This is a federal press conference. Come on, get a second mic.
To try and make sure that fire was put out properly, and that's quite a
I think it's questions about how the fire being put out properly.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the full fire response. I'll just tell you the fire department did respond, and they don't say they put out fires, they suppress the fire. So they use the best of their abilities at that time to suppress it. Like we said, there was dense vegetation. The fire went underground, and, I'm not a fire expert, but there's only so much apparently you can do about that. So,
okay, then. I don't know if that's a super satisfying answer. Let's go to Stephen in Tustin. Stephen, hello.
Hi, I got a question for you. If your only two choices were the guy who did this gets full punishment, or he got off scot-free, but the state, city, and county were fully responsible for all their screw-ups, which would you take?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, if they can prove that this guy was 100% responsible and there's no liability on the city, I want this guy to go. But if the liability is on the city, the county, or the state, we're all going to be paying for this because whatever a settlement is going to be passed on to us. And I don't think the people in charge have learned their lesson. And I don't think if they were held responsible financially, they would learn their lesson either. So that's a tough one. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Henry in Altadena. Henry, hello.
Hi, Randy. I just wanted to drive three quick messages home. Number one, there are 30 independent fire departments in LA County. The LA Fire Department by itself each day responds to 35 fires that are started by the homeless firebugs. That's 245 fires a week, 12,740 fires a year. 2, the homeless people used to call the jail and the prisons home, but since the politicians don't want to keep them locked up in jail anymore, I would say my point number 3, who's responsible for these fires? The politicians, because they're not doing their jobs. If these homeless people where they're supposed to be, which is jail or prison, they wouldn't be starting fires, would they? Thank you, Randy. I love you and John.
Thanks so much for the call, Henry. Appreciate it. You know what's interesting about that is when you take those numbers at face value of how many fires are started every day by homeless encampments, you think of how many fire department resources have to go towards that aren't going towards, the units that are supposed to do brush clearance, which apparently those have been beleaguered. There are so many things the fire department could do that they can't do because they're constantly responding to homeless fires. But that's leadership.
It did smolder there until a week later, in which the winds picked up and reignited. So that's our understanding of it started. Let me go for it here.
Let's go to Dave in Whittier. Dave, hello.
Hey, Randy. So are they hedging? Do they know if he's homeless? We need to know if it was a homeless person or if it was an intentional act of terrorism of some kind. But that's what we need to find out. And I want to know if they're hedging. It seems they could be. And when are they going to tell us if it was a homeless person? And we need to pressure them to tell us.
I will say, I don't know if it's a homeless person based on the allegation that this guy was an Uber driver and was doing an Uber job before he decided to go light the Palisades on fire. I don't know if you can get a job with Uber or Lyft if you don't have a home address.
Yeah, I missed that part. I missed the part about the Uber driver part. Okay, thanks, Randy. Appreciate that.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. More of your calls coming up next, and we'll continue with this Q&A of the weirdest story ever of the arrest of the Palisades fire starter, who apparently was looking up ChatGPT pictures of fires before this. It's so strange. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's get back to the Q&A of Bill Asaley's press conference on the suspect in the Palisades fire.
Let me go for it here.
So did he move to Florida after this?
He relocated, yes.
Can you say a little bit more about what he was doing there? If he had been living in Palisades, was he camping? Was he hiking? Was he...
He just finished an Uber drive. So he just dropped someone off in that vicinity. On an Uber drive. He was an Uber driver.
I bet Uber loves being tied to this story. Lyft might love it more.
He dropped someone off. He was in this neighborhood, and he was, this is New Year's Eve, so it was around midnight, and he went up to this hilltop. And at some point up there, around 12 a.m., he ignited a fire.
Residents that we spoke with reported and had video of fireworks during that same period of time.
Oh, yeah. We heard a whole bunch of stories about how there were fires started by fireworks that night, and that's what we thought happened here.
Initially, the belief was it was a group of kids that were there. Are you saying that the suspect here potentially set off those fireworks? You're saying open?
We have no evidence that any fireworks were set off in this area at the time the fire ignited.
But then what did he use to start the fire? Open flame. I guess you can't be so specific. I don't see how that's giving away the case.
Does he have prior criminal history, and has he been cooperative in this process?
Does he have his criminal history? Does he have criminal history?
Asaley, you might want to be a little more prepared. 790 KABC welcomes Jagged Edge to the Toyota Arena on November 6th. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I'm sure we'll have more news in the coming days about this arrest in the Palisades fire, but I did want to end the show with some news specifically about this industry that I have been working in consistently for the last 19 years. I can't believe it'll be 20 years next year. I'm not that old. I just turned 40. But if you don't know my history, I have worked here very happily at 790 KABC for the past 12 years. This is my 13th year. I started in September of 2013. I started at 97.1, the FM talk station, and that station flipped and everyone lost their jobs in 2009 at the beginning of the recession. I worked independently for an overnight radio show, the John and Jeff Show, for a year. And then I ended up working at what I guess people would say is our competition, KFI AM 640, for a couple of years. And I worked there with my buddy Tim Conway Jr., and I had a great time over there. I ended up quitting in the summer of 2012 because I didn't think I was getting enough money for what I was doing. But then I magically ended up here, and I've been very, very, very happy. But there was an announcement yesterday that there were once again layoffs with iHeartMedia, and that included with Los Angeles' cluster, and that included people that I've known for years and years and years, including my buddy Clay Rowe, who was John and Ken's board op for years and years and years. More recently was the imaging director for KFI. He worked for that place for 26 years. And he found out yesterday that it was his last day. Mo Kelly, who does the 7 to 10 show over there, found out he doesn't get to do a last show. His show is over. I didn't know Mo very well when I worked over there, but we've sent messages to each other over the years. And it's always heartbreaking when you see this. And my heart goes out to all the people that I know that got laid off and the people that I don't know that got laid off, because in this business, we've all been there. We probably will all be there again at some point. And, it's a really tough time, especially in this industry, to get new jobs. So I feel really awful for them. And I just wanted to, extend my gratitude for knowing those people, knowing how incredible they were. And, the few years that I did work over there were very formative for me, especially the part where I said $15 an hour isn't enough to do this. And then I ended up here. And, careers worked out pretty well for me. But, I feel pretty bad about that. I hate to see it. And last year they had the layoffs where they let go of almost the entire news department. And that was like one of the things. They were the big news station. We haven't had a news department here, like a real one, in years and years and years. So I know what it's all like. And even though we're technically competitors, no one in the industry actually feels that way. We're all in this together. We're all part of this big, same LA radio family. So my best wishes go out to at least the people that I know that were laid off so far: Clay Rowe, Mo Kelly, and Tawala Sharp. It's a tough thing, especially in this market. Thank you all so much for listening to this show. I am still in for Johnny all week, so you can hear me not just 5 to 6 here, but from noon to 3 every single day, and 5 to 6 every single day. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.